I never thought revenge would taste like coffee gone cold and victory gone sweet. As I sat in my car clutching my surrendered security badge, a plan 17 years in the making began to crystallize with perfect, terrifying clarity. I started at Meridian Technologies fresh out of college, back when the internet was still finding its footing and network fears had companies scrambling for tech talent. My cubicle became my kingdom, a modest space adorned with family photos, Star Wars figurines, and a world's best dad mug that my daughter Emma made in 3rd grade art class. 17 years. Nearly 2 decades of solving crises that no one else understood, of being the invisible force that kept everything running. Those early years were different. The company felt like family then. Old man Meridian himself would wander through the IT department on Fridays with donuts, asking about our families by name. "You're the backbone of this place, Roger," he'd say, clapping my shoulder with his withered hand. "Without you, we'd all be sending smoke signals." I remember the night Emma had her appendix removed. I was in the middle of a server migration when Melissa called, panic threading through her voice. Without hesitation, I dropped everything and ran. The next morning, while Emma recovered in her hospital bed, I logged in remotely to finish the job. Roger, go home, my old boss Dave had insisted when I showed up the following day, bleary-eyed but determined. The servers will survive without you. But they wouldn't have. That was the thing no one but me seemed to understand. Every wire, every connection, every digital pulse that kept Meridian's heart beating ran through my fingertips. I knew the systems like I knew my own children's faces. Weekends blurred into weekdays. Holidays became opportunities to upgrade systems while others celebrated. Melissa stopped asking when I'd be home for dinner. Instead, she'd bring containers of homemade lasagna to my desk, sitting silently beside me while I worked, her presence more comforting than any words could be. "Do you ever think about taking that offer from Google?" she asked once, as we celebrated our 15th anniversary with takeout at my desk during an emergency patch implementation. I remember looking up at her, confused. "And leave all this?" I gestured to my kingdom of cables and monitors. "This is where I belong." The competing offers rolled in regularly: Amazon, Microsoft, startup flush with venture capital. Each time, I'd politely decline. Loyalty was my North Star. My father had worked 40 years at the same steel mill before retiring, and I'd inherited his steadfast dedication like a genetic trait. Things changed when old man Meridian retired and the company went public. The family atmosphere evaporated, replaced by quarterly targets and efficiency metrics. Then came Tyler Crawford with his MBA from Wharton and his slick presentations about operational streamlining. He didn't understand our systems, didn't try to. Instead, he brought in Max Bennett, a consultant who asked too many questions and took too many notes. I noticed the changes gradually. First, my admin access to the financial systems required additional authorization. Then my routine security sweeps were temporarily suspended to reduce system load. Just procedural updates, Tyler assured me, never quite meeting my eyes. Nothing personal, Roger. But it was personal. I built those systems. Nursed them through crashes, protected them from hackers, expanded them as the company grew. They were as much a part of me as my own limbs. At home, Melissa noticed the change in me. "You grinding your teeth at night again," she'd say, pressing a gentle hand against my cheek. "What's happening at work?" "Nothing I can't handle," I'd reply. But in quiet moments, staring at myself in the bathroom mirror, the truth reflected back was different. Something was wrong at Meridian. And whatever it was, they didn't want me to see it. I noticed a shift on a Tuesday afternoon in late October. The office was quieter than usual, a kind of quiet that feels deliberate rather than peaceful. I'd spent the morning troubleshooting network issues on the 3rd floor when my security badge failed at the server room door. 3 swipes, 3 denials. 17 years, and suddenly I was locked out of my own domain. I called IT support ironic, since I essentially was IT support and waited 40 minutes for Max Bennett to arrive, his lanyard swinging importantly against his pressed blue shirt. "System glitch," he muttered, avoiding my eyes as he used his own badge to let me in. "We'll get you a new one processed." The air in the server room felt different, charged with something I couldn't name. My sanctuary had been violated, cables routed, new equipment installed. Equipment I hadn't authorized. "What's this?" I asked, pointing to a new server rack tucked in the corner. Max shrugged. "Direct from Tyler, financial processing upgrades, proprietary stuff." That night I couldn't sleep. The ceiling fan spun above our bed, casting rhythmic shadows while Melissa breathed softly beside me. Something nagged at the edges of my consciousness, a thread loose in a fabric of Meridian's systems. I slipped out of bed and opened my laptop. "You working again?" Melissa murmured, her voice thick with sleep. "Just checking something," I whispered. "Go back to sleep." I accessed the network remotely, a backdoor I'd created years ago for emergencies. The company's digital circulatory system spread before me like a familiar map. I navigated through the architecture I'd built, looking for anomalies. And there were unusual data patterns in the financial transfers. Regular payments to a vendor I'd never heard of, Apex Solutions Group. The amount wasn't astronomical, $80,000 here, $95,000 there, but the frequency was concerning. The weekly payments dating back 3 years, all authorized by CFO Warren Phillips, all flowing through systems that had recently been removed from my oversight. I dug deeper. Apex Solutions had a website, but no real digital footprint. Their corporate address matched a strip mall in Cincinnati. Their services were vaguely described as Enterprise Solutions Consulting. I cross-referenced with our vendor database and found nothing. They weren't an approved Meridian vendor. The following morning, I arrived early, determined to speak with Warren directly. His assistant Jennifer blocked my path, suddenly protective of a door that had always been open to me. "He's in meetings all day, Roger. Can I schedule you for next week?" I was turning to leave when Tyler appeared, his hand clamping down on my shoulder with false camaraderie. "Roger, just the man I wanted to see. Got a minute?" His office was minimalist, no photos, no personal touches, just expensive furniture and awards on the wall. He didn't offer me a seat. "We're making some organizational changes," he said, not bothering with preamble. "Part of our efficiency initiative." My stomach dropped before his next words came. "We're eliminating your position, effective immediately." The room seemed to tilt slightly. "Eliminating my position, I built the infrastructure of this entire company. And we appreciate that service," Tyler said, sliding a manila folder across his desk. "This is your severance package, very generous, 6-month salary, extended benefits." "Who's taking over my systems?" I asked, my voice sounding distant to my own ears. "Max will be handling the transition. We've contracted with an outside firm for ongoing support." The pieces clicked into place with sickening clarity. They were removing me because I was the only one who could see what they were doing. "This is about Apex Solutions, isn't it?" I said quietly. Tyler's expression flickered just for a millisecond, but I caught it. "Via. I don't know what you're talking about," he said, his voice carefully controlled. "This is simply a business decision." On my way out, I passed Warren in the hallway. He'd always been friendly, golfing invitations, Christmas party small talk. Now he looked through me like I was already a ghost. In the parking garage, I sat in my car, hands trembling on the steering wheel. My laptop and personal effects in a cardboard box beside me. 17 years ended in a 15-minute meeting. My phone buzzed with a text from Melissa. "How's your day going, honey?" I couldn't answer. Not yet. Instead, I opened my laptop one last time and connected to Meridian's guest Wi-Fi. Something compelled me to search Warren Phillips' name alongside Apex Solutions. The third result was a wedding announcement from 6 years ago, Warren's sister-in-law Elaine marrying Robert Daniels, CEO of Apex Solutions Group. They thought terminating me would bury their secret. They thought wrong. They taught me one final lesson at Meridian Technologies. Loyalty means nothing when millions are at stake. I wasn't just an employee they were discarding, I was the only person who understood the systems well enough to expose them. I started the car, strange calm settling over me. They had no idea what they'd just unleashed. The silent rage that had been building inside me for days finally had a purpose. I sat in my home office at 3:17 a.m., the blue light of my monitor casting shadows across my face as I executed the plan I'd been meticulously crafting. My fingers flew across the keyboard with practiced precision, each keystroke a small act of justice. They thought they were so clever. They thought that by removing me from the building, they'd severed my connection to their digital kingdom. What they failed to understand was that I had built backdoors into Meridian systems years ago, failsafes that even I had almost forgotten about until desperation unearthed them from memory. "Are you coming to bed soon?" Melissa called from the hallway, concern lacing her voice. "Just finishing something important," I replied, never taking my eyes off the screen. "I'll explain everything tomorrow." I hesitated for just a moment, my cursor hovering over the final command. Was I crossing a line? Would this make me no better than them? The doubt crept in, but then I remembered Warren's face in the hallway, how he looked through me after 17 years of so-called friendship. I remembered Tyler's condescending tone as he handed me that manila folder. I remembered everything I'd sacrificed for Meridian while they plotted behind my back. My resolve hardened. I deserved better. I deserved justice. With a deep breath, I pressed enter. The script I'd written would remain dormant until 9:15 a.m., precisely 15 minutes before the quarterly board meeting was scheduled to begin. Then, like digital wildfire, it would compile every transaction related to Apex Solutions, cross-reference them with legitimate vendor costs, and calculate the markup percentage that had been skinned. The report would include Warren's family connection, date-stamped authorizations, and even snippets of emails I'd recovered from server backups. All packaged into a comprehensive file that would simultaneously deliver to every board member's inbox with one subject line: Urgent, Financial Fraud Documentation Apex Solutions Scheme. I shut down my computer and finally went to bed, sleeping more soundly than I had in weeks. The next morning, I sat in a coffee shop across from Meridian's headquarters, nursing my third espresso. My phone buzzed with a text from Kevin, my former protege who still worked in IT. Holy shit, Roger, what did you do? The boardroom just erupted. Police are in the lobby. I checked my watch. 9:32 a.m. Right on schedule. Through the massive glass windows of the Meridian building, I could see unusual activity in the lobby. 2 police officers entered, followed by men in suits who could only be federal agents. Corporate fraud of this magnitude would definitely interest the SEC. My phone vibrated again, an unknown number. I answered hesitantly. Roger Harmon? A deep voice asked. Speaking. This is Gregory Wong from Meridian's board. We need you to come in, immediately. I walked across the street with my head held high, past the security guard who looked at me with wide, confused eyes. The elevator ride to the executive floor was surreal, the same elevator I'd taken thousands of times, but now I was ascending as something else entirely. Not a disgraced former employee, but an avenging force. When the doors opened, chaos greeted me. Warren was being escorted into a conference room by 2 officers, his face ashen. Tyler stood against a wall, gesticulating wildly to a suited woman who appeared completely unmoved by his explanations. A Max Bohr, arrogant Max, looked like he might vomit at any moment, frantically typing on his phone as if trying to distance himself from the implosion. Gregory Wong, the longest-serving board member, approached me with an outstretched hand. The evidence is irrefutable, he said quietly. How long have you known? Long enough, I replied, watching as Tyler finally noticed me standing there. The blood drained from his face as recognition dawned. He finally understood what had happened and who had orchestrated his downfall. Our eyes locked across the chaotic room, and I allowed myself one small, satisfied smile. In that moment, Tyler Crawford knew exactly who Roger Harmon really was, not just the IT guy who kept the servers running, but the architect of his destruction. The wheels of justice were turning exactly as I had calculated, with mathematical precision. Just like my code. Just like my revenge. As I rode the elevator back down to the lobby after my meeting with Gregory Wong, a strange sense of vindication washed over me. My phone buzzed relentlessly with texts from former colleagues who had already heard whispers of what was unfolding upstairs. The justice I'd longed for was finally being served. Walking through the revolving doors into the midday sun, I loosened my tie and took a deep breath of freedom. That's when I spotted her Special Agent Diane Mitchell, FBI Cybercrime Division, leaning against my car. Mr. Harmon, she said, flashing her badge. We need to talk. My stomach dropped. This wasn't part of my calculations. In a private room at the local FBI field office, Agent Mitchell slid a thick folder across the table. You've been busy, she said, her expression unreadable. I opened the folder to find screenshots of my late-night activities, every keystroke, every backdoor I'd accessed, all meticulously documented. But how? The words caught in my throat. Because I put them there, came a voice from behind me. I turned to see Kevin, my protege, entering the room alongside another agent. I'm sorry, Roger, Kevin said, not meeting my eyes. I've been working with the Bureau for 11 months. The fraud investigation started long before you discovered it. The realization hit me like a physical blow. My mind raced back through every conversation, every late-night work session where I'd mentioned my suspicions to Kevin. All this time, I thought I was the mastermind, the architect of justice, but I had been merely a pawn. We knew about Warren and Tyler, Agent Mitchell explained. But we needed concrete evidence of the full scheme, including offshore accounts. When you started poking around, they panicked exactly as we predicted. Your termination accelerated our timeline, Kevin added, finally looking at me. But your extracurricular activities last night almost compromised 3 years of investigation. We had to let some of it play out to maintain cover. I sat in stunned silence, replaying every moment of my revenge fantasy. What I thought was my moment of triumph had been orchestrated all along. Agent Mitchell leaned forward. Here's your situation, Mr. Harmon. Unauthorized access to computer systems is a federal offense carrying up to 10 years. However, she paused. Your actions, while illegal, did expose concrete evidence we might have missed. The U.S. attorney is willing to consider immunity in exchange for your testimony. This whole time, I whispered, I thought I was the one pulling the strings. Kevin's face softened. You taught me everything I know about system security, Roger, including how to monitor backdoors that even the creators forget about. The irony was almost too perfect. In my quest for justice, I'd broken the law. In my moment of revenge, I discovered I was never really in control. The board meeting is still happening, Agent Mitchell said. But with a different agenda now. Gregory, one called while we were driving over. The board wants to offer you something. 6 months after the day in the FBI field office, I found myself walking through the glass doors of Meridian Technologies not as a disgraced employee, but as the newly appointed Chief Information Security Officer. The boardroom where I once stood accused was now where I presented quarterly security briefings. The deal Agent Mitchell offered wasn't just immunity, it was a second chance. In exchange for my testimony and expertise in navigating Meridian's complex systems, the board had created a position that reported directly to them. Gregory Wonk had been instrumental in the decision, arguing that no one understood their vulnerabilities better than the man who had exposed them. Your anger was justified, Roger, he told me after the dust settled. But it's how you channel it that defines you. The federal case against Warren Phillips concluded with a guilty plea. 15 years in federal prison and forfeiture of all assets tied to the scheme. I remembered how confident he'd looked the day he fired me, how he'd smiled while security escorted me out. You understand, Roger, it's just business, he'd said then. I saw him one last time before sentencing. The expensive seat replaced by prison orange, his confident smirk gone. Was it worth it? I asked him. He couldn't even look me in the eye. Tyler Crawford was fighting the charges with expensive lawyers, but the evidence was overwhelming. Last I heard, his wife had filed for divorce and his country club membership had been revoked, a social death sentence in his circles. Max Bennett was fighting extradition from Brazil, his Instagram posts growing increasingly desperate as his stolen funds dwindle. One evening as I was working late, I found Kevin in my office doorway. Still can't kick the habit of midnight troubleshooting? He asked. I laughed. Old habits die hard. I never wanted to deceive you, Kevin said, leaning against the doorframe. When the FBI approached me after I noticed the same discrepancies you did, they convinced me it was the only way to build a solid case. You did what was right, I admitted. If I'd gone to the authorities instead of trying to be the hero, you wouldn't be you, Kevin finished. Besides, your dramatic flair definitely expedited things. I promoted Kevin to Director of Systems Security, recognizing what I had missed before. Sometimes the student surpasses the teacher. At home, things were different too. Melissa noticed I no longer brought work stress home. The rage that had consumed me during those dark weeks after my firing had transformed into something more productive. You're present again, she said one night, curling against me on the couch. For a while there, I thought I'd lost you to revenge. You almost did, I admitted. I was so focused on making them pay that I nearly destroyed everything else. The irony wasn't lost on me. My elaborate revenge plot had succeeded, but not in the way I'd imagined. Instead of satisfaction from a vigilante victory, I found redemption through proper justice. The systems I had built to monitor and protect were now stronger because they'd been tested. Yesterday, I passed the old server room where I'd spent countless weekends. Inside was a new group of IT specialists, eager faces I'd personally hired. They weren't just maintaining systems, they were building new safeguards against the very vulnerabilities I'd once exploited. Sometimes justice comes not from getting even, but from making things right. My nameplate on the executive floor isn't just a symbol of victory, it's a reminder that the person who knows the system best should be its guardian, not its avenger. As I look out over the Columbus skyline from my corner office, I realize some forms of revenge are better than others. The best kind isn't about destroying what wronged you, it's about rebuilding it stronger than before. Looking back now, revenge wasn't what I needed, it was justice. The satisfaction of watching Warren in handcuffs paled compared to rebuilding what they'd corrupted. The systems I once used as weapons became my responsibility to protect. My rage had nearly cost me everything that mattered: my integrity, my marriage, my future. Sometimes the person they underestimate becomes exactly who they should have feared most. Not because of schemes or retaliation, but because truth has a way of demanding to be heard. When I close my eyes at night, I no longer see their faces as they realize they'd been caught. Instead, I see the company I helped build, stronger now because someone had the courage to break it open and heal it properly. The best revenge, I whisper to myself as I turn out my office light, isn't destroying what wronged you, it's becoming the guardian of what they tried to steal. And in that thought, I finally find peace.